And for those of you, we ask that all commissioners, presenters, and attendees please mute your microphones and turn off your video feeds if you're not speaking. For those attending via telephone, you can mute and unmute your microphones dialing *6. The top toolbar contains a raise your hand function in case a commission member or presenter has a question during the meeting. Commenters and presenters may share their screens using the share content box, which is right above. And the chat box will also be checked routinely, mainly to address logistical questions or issues during the meeting. As way of information, we will be holding a public comment period at the beginning of the meeting. Each public commenter will have up to 3 minutes for public comment, and we will signal to the speaker once time is up. Thank you very much, and I will turn it over to our Vice Chair.
Thank you so much, Marco. And I want to give a special warm welcome to Gary Shinners and Claire Pasco. Oh, I hope I don't mess this up. Pascocello. Did I say it right, Claire? These are our two newest commissioners, and this is their first meeting for each of them. So can you guys turn on your cameras just for a second to let everybody see who you are and wave at them? There's Gary. Claire, could you please say your last name correctly? So
sure, you had it. Pascocello.
Pascocello, perfect. Okay,
yeah.
Good. Well, we're so happy that you guys have joined us and joined the commission, and we look forward to working with you. So thank you for being here. Okay, so let's get going. The first thing we have to do is consider the minutes. Does anybody have any discussion? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I motion, Adam.
Thank you, Adam. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Gary.
Thank you, Gary. All in favor indicate by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Hi, this is Alex Sanders.
Aye.
Hi, Alex. Welcome. We're just doing the minutes.
Aye.
Hi.
All right. Seems like the ayes have it, but let's just be sure. If anybody objects to the minutes, please indicate. Hearing no objection, the minutes are approved. Thank you. Now I'd like to invite our public speaker. Marco, do you need to give some introductory remarks?
Yes, we have one public commenter, and her name is Jean Hensroth, and we will turn it over to her.
Thank you, Jean.
Hi, I think I've got the mic on.
Yes.
Hi. Well, today I'm going to talk about the formerly, thank you, Jill, for inviting me first. And today I'll talk about the formerly Community Center and its park located in Leeway Overley. On Saturday mornings in this park, you can see children playing Babe Ruth League softball. Midday of any day, people eat lunch on the benches in front of the building. And during the week, moms and nannies watch their young children enjoying the playground equipment. At any time, you can pick up a basketball game on the outdoor court. As president of the Leeway Overley Civic Association, I represent members of our community requesting Arlington County conduct a public evaluation with public input to determine the short and long-term uses of the formerly Community Center building and its park, located at Langston Boulevard in North Lexington, to commence no later than early 2024. We believe the reimagined Langston Boulevard plan will not be greener, and destroying its treasured landmarks like the Lee Community Center building and park would make the corridor a less special place. We also request that the county maintain its ownership and stewardship of this 2.14 acre block and the Lee Community Center building and park remain community space, and any future improvements be 100% dedicated to community space. The Lee Center building and its park have served the community for 98 years. In '71, APS transferred the building to the county, which opened the community center the next year. The termination of community center services coincided with the opening of Lubber Run Community Center. Many residents in our neighborhood did not transfer to programs at other facilities, especially our seniors. Arlington Cultural Affairs manages the LAC Art Studios on the second floor of the building, consisting of professional quality printing and ceramic studios. The county is moving these to Shirlington in 2025, at which time the building will be empty. The plan recommends demolishing the Lee Community Center building and replacing it with a public-private partnership multi-story building, which would not be 100% dedicated to the community. Demolition would destroy the vegetation surrounding this historic building designed by a famous architect, including a significant tree canopy and an 85% native plant pollinator garden. This contradicts some of the plan's goals of maintaining and expanding the tree canopy, maintaining green space, and respecting historically significant buildings. Building renovations required include a new roof, HVAC, and asbestos remediation. The building has 3 handicap bathrooms and an elevator. The only non-ADA compliance issue is an internal access to the 1957 cafeteria. Instead of restoring the building to its prior state, Arlington could take advantage of this opportunity to update it into a zero-carbon, solar-powered preservation success story. And future uses could include income-generating activities, and I think I met my mark.
That's time 3, yes.
All right, Jean, thank you so much for coming and making that presentation. I heard her give a similar presentation at the county board meeting, and I thought the commissioners would appreciate hearing this perspective. So thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Jill.
And I believe that is our last public speaker, unless there is anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment. All right. Hearing none, we can move forward with the next item.
Yes, please invite Ryan Delaney to give us the presentation on the FNRP.
Great. Thank you all. Let me pull up our slides and I will get started. Oh, sorry. Pulled up the wrong one by accident. There we go. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So good evening. I'm Ryan Delaney. I'm a planner with the Department of Parks and Recreation, and I'm the project manager for the Forestry and Natural Resources Plan. I'm going to be presenting a short update on the plan, our process, and next steps between now and the end of the year as we begin to bring the planning process to a close. So I will start with an overview of the plan and how it fits into county planning. Some of this I think will be review for a lot of our commissioners, but since we have some new folks tonight, kind of want to start at the beginning. So just jumping right in, the Forestry and Natural Resources Plan, or FNRP, is a new element of the county's comprehensive plan and will serve as the guiding document for the county's policies related to integrated natural resource and urban forest management across the county. It updates and replaces the Urban Forest Master Plan and Natural Resources Management Plan, both of which were sub-elements of the Public Spaces Master Plan and dealt primarily with public property. For the first time, from a planning perspective at least, we're looking at all of our natural resources as an interconnected system that covers not only our public natural areas and parks, but also the built environment and private property. In terms of timeline, we published the latest version of the draft late last month, and we're at the request to advertise stage indicated by the orange arrow here on our timeline graphic. The Planning Commission and County Board unanimously approved the request to advertise at their October meetings, and will be bringing the final draft forward to consider for adoption in December of this year. In the meantime, we're going to be visiting our commissions and committees to update them on the plan and hear any final feedback this month and into November. So I would like to touch briefly on how we developed this plan. We kicked off in 2020, and the planning process has included an interdepartmental core team with members from multiple divisions of DPR, as well as our colleagues at DES, CPHD, AED, and Arlington Public Schools. This process has also been supported by the Natural Resources Joint Advisory Group, a county manager appointed committee consisting of representatives from the Forestry and Natural Resources Commission, Parks and Rec Commission, the Climate Change, Energy and Environment Commission, with whom we've met regularly. And the process also included a lot of benchmarking research to learn about current practices, innovative programs, and lessons learned from some of our peer jurisdictions. And lastly, the plan has been shaped by 3 rounds of public engagement, starting before the first draft was written, that really created some opportunities for Arlingtonians both to learn more about their environment and influence how we plan for its future. The outreach methods across those 3 engagements included all the elements you see here on the slide, everything from online comment forums, educational materials, to pop-up events, virtual public meetings, an in-person open house, as well as multiple commission and committee briefings. And overall, these have generated over 5,000 comments that helped us shape the FNRP and really made the draft stronger as we've moved through the process. So before I dive into what's actually in the plan, I want to take a little bit of a step back and focus on the philosophical approach to the planning process. And as I mentioned earlier, the FNRP is a combined update of the Urban Forest Master Plan and Natural Resources Management Plan. We tried to go beyond combining these elements into a single document and developed an integrated perspective on environmental planning that really tried to emphasize equity, a community-wide approach a community-wide approach based in education and volunteerism, and a focus on reconnecting nature to daily life. And to that end, the FNRP really follows from the county's equity and biophilic cities resolutions and is focused on breaking down the sort of artificial distinction between nature and the built environment, as well as creating more space for natural elements alongside us through biophilic design and ensuring that the benefits of these resources are equitably available regardless of folks' backgrounds. And we believe that this approach is critical not just to the conservation of our natural resources, but also to quality of life in Arlington. So moving into the plan's content, give you a short overview of what it contains. Similar to other comprehensive plan elements, the FNRP includes an executive summary, a vision statement, and priority actions that sort of summarize the plan, followed by planning principles, a narrative introduction, and a planning context to provide background on how this document fits into Arlington's comprehensive plan and our other planning efforts. So all of that is followed by the strategic directions, which is where the plan's policy recommendations live, as well as the implementation framework and appendices that illustrate how we will realize the vision in the FNRP. So these strategic directions seen here on the slide are the plan's broad policy areas and really form the framework for its recommendations. In each of the strategic directions, the plan prescribes actions that the county should take towards implementing these overarching policy goals. And then finally, each of those actions will be implemented through action steps, which are the specific implementation level tasks that the county can take to move the policy forward. This structure is really similar to the Public Spaces Master Plan, and for reference in the current draft, there are 84 individual action steps. Out of all of the plan's recommendations, the draft highlights these 10 priority actions on the screen here. These were selected to emphasize the major changes that the FNRP recommends over current policy, highlight our equity recommendations, elevate actions that staff felt would be most impactful, as well as to reflect what we learned about community priorities through the public engagement processes. So this list includes cornerstone conservation goals like reestablishing and maintaining at least 40% tree canopy countywide, while ensuring that 70% of those canopy trees are native species, acquiring land for conservation purposes, and establishing connectivity between nodes of habitat. It also includes a selection of recommendations emphasizing the FNRP's focus on creating more space for natural resources and green infrastructure in the built environment, through both local and state level actions. And then lastly, this selection highlights the plan's equity measures in both maintenance and establishment of green infrastructure, and reinforces the FNRP's community-based approach to conservation through outreach and volunteerism. The emphasis on those priority actions doesn't mean that the other 70 plus action steps in the plan aren't accounted for. The FNRP does include a full implementation framework similar to that of our other comprehensive plan elements, where each recommendation is listed along with high-level details about proposed timing, responsible parties and partners, planning level cost estimates, and potential funding sources. And again, this is essentially the same format that we've used for the PSMP and for other recent planning efforts to ensure consistency with other adopted plans, and also to make sure that the plan remains flexible enough to guide decision-making in the long term. So that is the short recap of what's in the plan and how we got to this point. The new business I wanted to bring to you all tonight is a quick overview of the edits we've made to the draft this fall in response to our last round of public engagement that hopefully can help orient you all to the current draft that is the subject of our request to advertise. So jumping right in the introductory material, which includes the executive summary and the planning context I referenced earlier, we made changes to make racial equity and environmental justice more prominent in the executive summary to set the tone earlier in the document. We increased the sense of urgency, particularly in regards to climate and tree canopy decline in the introduction, added additional cross-references to the Historic and Cultural Resources Plan and other comprehensive plan elements. We expanded the discussion of by right development in our planning context and added a new section on environmental organizations and volunteer groups to our existing conditions section. We also clarified the description of our tree canopy, its trend of canopy decline. We added references to the Tree Canopy Fund and Tree Canopy Equity programs to the existing conditions as well to highlight some current efforts that are underway to address that decline. We also updated the formerly titled wildlife section of the existing conditions to flora and fauna and added more detail and a discussion of trends for native plants as well as animals in the county to create more parity with the discussion of tree canopy and strengthen the narrative connections between the different elements of our ecosystem that the plan touches on. And then finally, we reorganized the priority actions, executive summary, and introduction to better introduce the plan to readers and create a more succinct summary for the plan's content and impacts up front. Moving into the strategic directions, we tried throughout to be responsive to the comments we received and changed a lot of the language throughout, including the going through some of the action verbs in our recommendations and pulling out some of the more generic ones like explore in favor of more descriptive and active language that better aligns with our recommendations and is more specific to each recommendation, such as research, compare, evaluate, to really make clear that the county is committed to action, even if adopting the FNRP as an element of the comprehensive plan doesn't make concrete changes immediately. To reflect the clarifications that we made to the introduction and existing conditions regarding tree canopy decline, we revised our tree canopy goal in strategic direction 1 to state reestablish and add the framing at least 40% tree canopy. This is one of the recommendations that came out of the FNRC to make clear that this is 40% is a floor, not a ceiling. We've also included recommendations to include tree canopy and other vegetated cover targets in sector plans and similar county planning efforts. Specific recommendations to underground utilities to avoid tree impacts were appropriate, and expanded references to existing partnerships, volunteer organizations, and other partners, acknowledging that our initial approach really focused on a future-looking partnership policy was ultimately a weaker foundation for the plan's community-wide approach to conservation. We also refined some of the language in our biophilic design section to be clearer and less repetitive, and hopefully easier for folks new to the process to digest. Continuing on through the strategic directions, we also revisited the language in 2.1.1, which is our major tree equity recommendation, to make clear that the next steps are outreach to impacted communities to make positive change rather than more analysis to identify neighborhoods that have low tree equity scores. We have done that analysis. The FNRP clearly identifies those neighborhoods, and we want to be very clear about what the next steps are. We also further refined some of the recommendations in strategic direction 4 to better reflect the county's commitment to tracking and reporting on implementation of the plan broadly, not just on some of our specific tree canopy goals. We also added relevant information from our ongoing Deer Browse impact study to 4.1.8, seen here on the slide. Previously, that was a placeholder, and we wanted to make sure we had the most up-to-date information for folks who are tuned into both processes, and also to better ground some of our recommendations in the plan around invasives and native species management. And lastly, we made edits to ensure that our volunteer recommendations in Action 4.3 reflect the new focus in our introduction on our existing partners, programs, and recent successes. So that's a bit of an overview of the just the deeper edits that we've made between July and October when we published the new draft. We also made a lot of other smaller ones, adding more detail to the implementation matrix, particularly in regards to potential partners, increasing cross-references throughout the plan to other county comprehensive plan elements, and of course, catching all the typos or confusing elements of layout and language that folks commented on when we brought the draft forward this summer. So hopefully that it's a quick overview, but I want to preserve some time for your all's discussion this evening. I'm happy to provide some additional information as needed during the discussion, but wanted to summarize what the changes that we've made since we last briefed you all. And so moving forward to next steps, hopefully that was a bit of a window into the plan's development process and helps you all understand what's in our current draft and how we arrived at it. And in terms of our next steps, as I said, the final draft is currently out for public review. We'll be visiting our commissions this month and into November for a last round of discussion on the plan. And then the sort of ultimate next step will be bringing the final draft to the board and planning commission to consider for adoption in December. So yeah, that concludes the presentation. So I'll hand the mic back to Vice Chair Barker for any comments or questions. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ryan. We really appreciate all the hard work that you've done on this and the whole staff really that has worked on it for so long. So if we were to have further input, would we give that directly to you before we go to the county board in advance of this, the December 16th meeting?
Sure. I think there's
Okay.
sort of two ways we can do this. One, yeah, in your roles as advisors, absolutely a letter to the board would be appropriate. However, since we have this 60-day RTA period and it is open for comment, and we will be making trying to be responsive to those comments as we receive them and analyze them.
Okay.
Please direct comments to our FNRP email address or to me directly.
Okay.
As well, particularly for individual commissioners who have comments. In terms of sort of official feedback from the commission, I think a letter to the board is most appropriate at this stage, though. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. I've already given my comments at the county board meeting, so I wanted to open it up to anybody else that has comments. I will just preface it by saying that of the people on the Interjag who spoke, I only heard, I think, one request for a change, and that was to have increased metrics for the different implementation proposals. So is there anybody else that would like to ask questions or have discussion or anything? I'm not seeing any hands. Everybody loves it, right? One thing maybe you could comment on, Ryan, is the question by County Board Member Garvey about the deer. She said, when are we going to hear about the deer, what the plans are with the deer? And I know you had to hedge because the deer plans aren't ready
Sure.
in time for the Forestry and Natural Resources Plan, but can you give us a little update on that?
Yeah, and I will need to get back to you all on the specifics of timing for the next step. I am not directly managing that project, so I can only sort of relay some of the basics. We are at a period now where we're analyzing the comments we received from the last round of public engagement and working with our consultant team to develop recommendations for potential management solutions that will then be the subject of further engagement. The exact timing on that is still TBD, as I understand it, based on the volume of comments received. We're still sort of working through that sorting and analysis process. However, I will check in with our project manager over at the Parks and Natural Resources Division, and if there's more specifics that I'm not aware of this evening, happy to relay those to you by email tomorrow for distribution to the commission, if that's helpful.
Sure, thanks. I just wanted a general temperature on that.
Yeah. And I will also, just before I leave, I will put the link to the project page for the deer management effort in the chat, just so folks can follow along and check in on the timeline and things like that if you all aren't tuned into that. So apologize for the lack of detailed knowledge, but I will definitely get back to you all.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but it is something on everybody's mind. So Marco, if nobody, is anybody, can you tell if anybody has questions?
I don't see any hands raised at this point.
Okay. Did anybody have any comments or additional things that they wanted us to put in a letter to the county? I circulated something on the, I think it was the 19th or the 20th, and I sent that around. So if anybody has any comments on that, please let me know. It's a rehash of the comments that we've sent in before, so it's not surprising if you don't have any comments on it. All right, I think we should stop talking about this. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're good to go.
Happy to be let off the
Wow.
hook.
Okay, thank you so much for coming, Ryan. We appreciate the update and all the hard work. Really, it's an amazing thing.
Great. Well, I appreciate the time this evening. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ryan. Our next item is the Planning Langston Boulevard follow-up presentation and discussion, and we're actually joined here by Natasha Alfonso Ahmed from CPHD, who will provide us that update.
Thank you, Marco, and hi, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good evening. So I'm going to share my screen. I just have a few slides, which I believe Marco shared with everyone ahead of time. Some of it you would have already heard before. So hold on one second. It's not showing up. Here we go. All right, just to confirm, you all can see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Marco. All right. So the last time we were here was in September 19th, and we provided an overview of where we were in the process at that point. So just to reiterate a few things, we are currently completing the last phase of this multi-phase planning study, which, as we said before, began in 2019. We're developing a comprehensive high-level vision for the corridor that we hope will guide both public and private investment long-term. It includes policies, recommendations, and design guidelines to support the goals and the vision for the corridor, which is to transform it to a green Main Street. The planning process, as you know, has provided multiple engagement opportunities since the beginning of the study. Most recently, our engagement for the first draft, which was released in June of this year, included an online engagement form, in-person open houses, and focus group meetings. We also briefed multiple commissions and advisory boards and held a county board work session to seek feedback on the plan's recommendations and to present staff's perspectives related to those community concerns. On September 19th, as I said, we presented to your commission the first draft of the plan. Then at the end of September, staff released the second draft, which is what we call the RTA draft. And in October, we presented that to the Planning Commission and the County Board, and both approved the request to advertise the public hearings in November. So, which you see the dates here on the screen. So on October 14th, along with the advertisement of the public hearings, the County Board also approved 2 revisions to the plan. The first was to remove a policy recommendation for consolidation of public uses, including recreational facilities and activities. And the second was to change the timing for considering the review of the Cherrydale and East Falls Church adopted plans to short term. Originally, we had placed that as under review by the, with the annual work program. But now we're changing that to be done in a shorter term time frame. So the plan's vision for the corridor elements apply to the entire planning area. However, the plan's recommendations themselves, they focus primarily on the core area for neighborhoods area 2, 3, and 5. For neighborhoods area 1 and 4, which are East Falls Church and Cherrydale respectively, those have adopted plans and the policies there will continue to apply. So the vision's policies and recommendations are centered around economic sustainability, environmental resilience, and equity. The plan proposes goals and policies for 9 key planning elements supported by design principles and design guidelines related to the built environment and the public realm. So the goal of the plan is to incentivize positive change in the core areas by providing other choices besides by right development, which we know will only exacerbate the problems that we have today. Our goal is to proactively plan for change in coordination with other countywide plans and policies and regulations so that we have a better chance of controlling the outcome and meeting the county's goals and the community's aspirations, not only for the corridor, but countywide. So through the extensive feedback, we heard support for the planning policies and in particular the policies around public spaces, but we also heard concerns on several key topics which are listed here on the slide, which some were concerns around the overall supply, access, and ownership of new public spaces. We also heard concerns about the potential consolidation of recreation facilities and activities, and the loss of park space as we envision more housing growth with future redevelopment. So to achieve the vision for a green Main Street, a new land use framework is needed that again concentrates development in the core areas to support commercial activity, expanded residential uses and densities, and access to new public spaces. The county has indicated before that additional density and height is needed to encourage special exception development that helps implement the vision and again achieve our countywide goals. And to achieve context-sensitive building design, the plan focuses, as you see here, the tallest building heights at activity hubs, key intersections, and within walking distance of metro and bus stops. And it also establishes minimum setbacks, upper story step backs, and desired height transitions for all of the neighborhood areas along the corridor. So the policies for public spaces focus on expanding the public space network by achieving new privately owned public spaces with redevelopment, and by providing a variety of space types, activities, uses, and sizes, and expanding the network of pedestrian and bicycle corridors to ensure that development includes connections to all of these public spaces. There are currently 24 existing public spaces within the entire planning area. Through this plan, there's the potential to achieve up to 28 new spaces in the core area. Over time, again, in the form of plazas and parks, that's nearly almost 6.3 acres of land, and an additional 17,000 linear feet of public space in the form of greenways, which we refer to as pedestrian and bicycle connections. Again, all within the core area. So to address the concerns that we heard around the desire for more county-owned public spaces and the potential consolidation of recreational facilities, the RTA draft, again, the draft that was presented in September, provided additional language to clarify that through future public space planning processes, the county will evaluate the public space needs along the corridor. It also acknowledges the need for accommodating spaces for children and designing spaces that provide accessibility regardless of age or ability, which is consistent with adopted PSNP policies. And lastly, it clarifies that the county may construct public spaces on public right-of-way and private property that is not otherwise implemented through private redevelopment. And regarding the Lee and Langston Brown Community Center sites, the RTA draft indicated that the county should study the feasibility of consolidating public uses where needed and where possible and appropriate, basically clarifying that it wouldn't just happen automatically, but rather through a formal process. The RTA draft also included a few changes to the public space map for Area 5 West to address concerns from the Lion Village Shopping Center property owner. The June draft initially proposed 2 public spaces on the northeast corner of the site, which included an elevated plaza to connect the new development with the Custis Trail along the rear of the site, and a street level plaza to mark the entrance to the trail. The property owner was concerned that the elevated plaza would create use conflicts and requested it be changed to an elevated pedestrian bike connection instead. The owner was also concerned that the street level plaza would conflict with the existing service and loading access point. If you're familiar with the property, there are existing truck access points to service and the existing giant grocery store at the site. So the RTA recommended instead a 5,000 square foot street level plaza at the south corner, which is the primary entrance to the trail today, just after the bridge or before the bridge, depending on which way you're going, as well as an elevated pedestrian bicycle connection along the rear of the site, and improvements overall to the existing public land surrounding the trail that's again adjacent to their property to enhance visibility and access to the trail. In the RTA draft, we also included additional language to clarify that buildings near the entrances to the trail should have a minimum 20-foot setback to widen and enhance the entrance to the trail and should provide design features on the ground and upper stories that again support activity and encourage sort of eyes on the trail for safety. Then per the county board's direction, the final draft, which is expected to be released later this week, hopefully tomorrow, will not include the public facilities policy number 8 and strategy number 7, which again speak to the consolidation of public uses and recreational facilities and activities. And it will include language to clarify that when any future studies of the Lee and the Langston Brown Community Center sites are conducted, that is done with public input. And then to implement the plan, staff recommends amendments to the general land use plan, map and booklet, the master transportation plan, map, and the zoning ordinance. The GLUP amendments include establishing the Langston Boulevard Planning District on the map, again, to realize the plan's goals through new GLUP policy and zoning tools. It also includes adding open space triangles on the GLUP to indicate generally where public spaces are desired in each of the neighborhood areas, and removing the existing HCD designations for parcels in the core area, given that with this plan, there's new guidance for multifamily residential properties along the corridor. And lastly, it removes parcels within the Cherryville Revitalization District that are adjacent to areas where redevelopment has already occurred per those adopted plans. And that's done to allow for expanded housing options. So lastly, in conclusion, staff is requesting the commission recommend to the county board to adopt the plan and the associated amendments. So that concludes my presentation, and if I'll turn it back to the chair for any questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation and for all the hard work, the years of hard work that have obviously gone into this. So we appreciate you coming tonight. I guess I have a few things I'd like to, that kind of struck me as I was going through one more time. The 35% tree canopy goal is obviously much higher than the existing tree canopy of 21%. But it seems to be a little bit in conflict with the forestry plan that the commission's also considering, and I mean that the county board is considering in tandem. That was that's a 40% minimum. So can you reconcile those two? How would those two be reconciled?
Sure. I don't know if Vincent is online or if Irina would like to speak to that. But generally, speaking, we did look at the policies that were being presented in the FNRC and in the new version that's being considered. I think one of the challenges that we have along the corridor is that all of the sites are different. Most of them are highly impervious, but they're usually pretty small in size. And we have very few of the larger sites that have potential for redevelopment and really the potential for doing something that's substantial on those properties. And so for those reasons, we saw that we needed to sort of create two targets. One was for the smaller parcels, and the other is for the larger parcels. And the larger parcels, individually, they would be up to 35%. And I think the goal is for the whole corridor to increase to 35%. But we weren't confident that we could accomplish 40% everywhere because of the types of sites that we have. Sorry, Irina.
Go ahead. Yeah. Could you address the tiered thing where some of them are only 20%?
So Natasha, do you want to finish with that one,
Yeah,
or
I'll
do you want me
finish
to just
that.
the general? Okay.
Sure. So we have a tier because, as you may or may not be aware, there are sites along the corridor where we only allow up to 5 stories in height. Those are mostly in area 2. And it also happens to be in the part of the corridor where the parcels are the smallest. They're not as shallow, they're not as wide, and it would really require a lot of consolidation for there to be redevelopment. So those sites are the ones that we've targeted for 20% tree canopy coverage, because we understand that they're just not going to be able to build above ground parking. Underground parking might be very limited. And so the building area is also going to be pretty limited on those sites. There are also the sites that we're not establishing land use guidance at the moment. We're coming back to those sites after plan adoption to look at potential zoning tools that we could use for those sites to incentivize redevelopment, or at the very least improvements to those properties that will encourage buildings in the right location, expanding the plantable areas, which we know is a big problem, and providing the sort of the setback that we need to do the streetscape improvements. So they're just so limited for those particular sites that we're going to have to come back and figure out what zoning tools we have available. Maybe through that process, as we're looking at those sites a little bit more closely from that lens, there's an opportunity to rethink the tree canopy coverage. I think at this point we're as confident as we can be with the target that we have for those sites.
Thank you. Another thing that we
And
raised
I'll,
up.
just
Oh, sure, go ahead.
sorry, I just wanted to add to Irina Lazi from DPR. Just wanted to add to what was Natasha was saying. This is similar approach to what we have included or adopted as part of the Pentagon City Sector Plan. The numbers and targets are obviously, for the reasons that Natasha just specified, different in some ways. We actually, in Pentagon City, we even had more limitations. So you're going to see different numbers, like in some instances, 10%, 15, 20, depending on the plantable space. It's really based on the available plantable space. So I think it's the best way we can do the analysis. And it also, with our 40% overall tree canopy goal for the county, we always assume that these very urban areas, such as we are anticipating in some extent for the Langston Boulevard to become, they will always have a little bit less tree canopy than the rest of it. So it's just something to think about, that we won't be able to achieve everywhere 40%, but we are going to have to kind of make up for that in some other parts of the county where we have more plantable space and we are going to be able to achieve that. So just want to kind of to clarify that 40% goal is not going to, we are not going to be able to always apply that on every single scenario and every single location. It's just going to be impossible. But overall, the FNRP suggests, as you heard from Ryan, to achieve that goal in the future. So,
Right. Okay. Thanks for reconciling those. The other thing that I think this commission brought up last time, but I don't really see much of the change, any discussion of it in your listing of the changes, is with the increased density, with more people moving in, where are they going to play sports? We already have more need for sports facilities than we have sports facilities, and we're bringing in more people. So is there any plan to address that?
So what we've indicated, I think, in the plan is that those sort of uses and sort of comprehensive look of what types of amenities should be provided in the future, that would have to be part of a planning process, a public space planning process that's done for that, for the Langston Boulevard corridor in the future at some point, where we would look specifically at existing public spaces and the distribution of amenities and facilities and all of that, and determine based on the growth, which will be gradual, what is needed. I think what we have sort of realized early on in the process is that the core areas, which are the areas where change is needed, again, the parcels are small. There's just not enough space to put those kinds of recreational facilities or green spaces that could accommodate like a big ball field or something like that. And it also sort of contradicts what we're trying to do in the core. In the core area, we're trying to urbanize because we're trying to add more people to be able to be within walking distance of metro and transit and all of that. And so there's just always going to be this sort of push and pull and conflict, that you're going to have more people, but you're not going to have the space to create the kind of amenities that you need. And so you're going to have to look outside of it within the whole planning area to see how those uses can best be provided. And maybe there's repurposing of existing, sites. or rethinking of existing sites in a more creative way, in a more efficient way that can provide these sort of uses in the future or expanded uses. I mean, we also have to think about the types of uses that we're going to need in the future. Maybe they are provided in different formats than what we're used to today. So again, we're just limited with the number of parcels along the corridor that really have the opportunity for redevelopment, and we need to encourage development to provide housing and affordable housing. And so there's inherently there's a direct conflict there, which we wish we didn't have, but we're struggling with that and many other aspects too, not just the public spaces.
Okay, thanks. I'll bring up one more thing and then I'll open it up. I see we have Melissa has a hand up. And I just want to bring up the issue with the Lee Center and the changes that you made in response to what the county board did. So my understanding is that the public speaker that we had was asking that a new process began in early 2024 to re-envision the Lee Center. So so that is perfectly consistent with what you're saying in the revised plan, right?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. We've always said that any changes to any of those properties, whether it's for the short term or the long term, that happens through some kind of public process, which the county would undergo.
Okay.
And that's a planning process. So absolutely, the plan supports that.
Okay.
What the timing and all of that, that's really up to the board.
Right. So the big change is really that parcel was being considered for public housing and now it's not, or is it still potentially being considered for publicly owned housing?
It can still be considered for that in the future. I think we're being softer in how we're saying it. We're not making it a policy that it has to be considered. We're removing it from the policies and just sort of including the recommendation in the general narrative at the beginning that talks about existing policies already in the PSMP, which encourage consolidation of uses and all of that, and just saying that should be considered if it's appropriate, when it's appropriate, and all of that. So we're not being definitive by saying it's an absolute policy that has to happen.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. Let's Marco, should I call on people or do you want to add
Sure. I can call on some folks. So
okay, good. Okay.
the first hand I saw raised was from Commissioner Riggio, followed by Commissioner Rasmussen.
Great, thank you. Great presentation. Really helped clear up some questions I had from last time. I had a quick question on slide 17. I'm looking away because I have it over here. On slide 17, I see the general land use plan amendments. We have remove housing conservation district HCD areas proposed within proposed Langston Boulevard planning district. To clarify, does that mean that that specific district was removed and will be replaced with a more improved version of it, or they are removing it and it'll be the way it was before, the sort of status quo?
So we're removing it and it no longer applies in those areas where they overlap. So if an HCD district, overlaps with the new planning district, then inside the planning district, we're taking the boundary away. One of the sort of zoning changes that we're going to be making is to clarify, for example, that townhouses can only be permitted through site plan process, which is consistent with how the HCD deals with site plans today. So we're going to be very clear that applies here in the same way. So that's not going away. That'll still stay as part of the sort of recommendation for those parcels. But we're removing it and basically we're saying now you have these sort of new tools if you're within the new planning district.
Okay, so it's still in accordance with the idea of affordable housing and all of that,
yes.
Correct? Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right, Commissioner Rasmussen.
Hi. So thank you for the updates on the plan. I think you've addressed some of the concerns that we've expressed in the past. I am still troubled. I'm troubled by the response to the issue of the recreational spaces. I understand we wish we didn't need to account for the fact that we need to provide those spaces when we increase the population and the density and the people living in the area. But the fact is, it's there, and if we don't put it in the plan now, the development will win out, and it will always be the recreational space. Park space will always be something that we have to force in there, that we have to beg to put into the plan. And I highly encourage you to consider that as a priority. That if we are going to increase the number of people there, that comes with a cost, and that cost isn't simply the cost of building the space. It's the cost of having to ensure that there is recreational and park space for the people that you're bringing in there. And it can't be just pops that are often end up being commercial spaces, and again, winning out to development. We need to make sure that in these plans that even though the growth is gradual, we need to make more the recreation and park space has to you can't build that in the same way you build the population. You can't build it slowly. You can't add a little section here and there. It's got to be done in bigger sections. And so there needs to be that accounted for in this plan. And I don't think it is accounted for in the extent that it should be.
Okay, understood. If the commission wants to, tonight, if you're, I don't know if you all are considering to take action to recommend that this plan moves forward, you can certainly include that in your action as something, and we can take that back to the board, and we'll certainly between now and then, between now and when we go to the board and even the planning commission, we can certainly include that comment, and then consider what else we can do in the plan to address that.
Okay, thank you. I think we're going to be so.
Yeah, we had planned to write a letter to the county board, but are you saying we should write to you in advance of writing to the county board, or just copy you with our letter to the county board?
Copying me is fine. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Copying
Okay.
me is fine.
Okay.
But you can pass a motion tonight, and if you wanted to, I don't know if that's your plan, and then we can take that and actually put it into our staff report to the county board in addition to the letter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wanted to clarify that this item isn't an action item for the commission. However,
Right.
as we've discussed previously, any additional thoughts or any additional recommendations by this commission could be addressed in a follow-up letter. So yes.
Okay, right. Right, you wouldn't necessarily have to take an action. You wouldn't, yeah, okay.
That's correct.
Okay, so let me write that.
And I just have a question about, following up on our discussion when you were here in September about the POPs, which stands for what? What's it called? POPS,
Privately
public.
owned. Privately owned public spaces.
Public spaces,
Privately owned public spaces, which just blows my mind. I guess that's why it pops, right? But one of our critiques is that we've had experience with these POPs mostly being basically commercial adjacent plazas that are full of impermeable surfaces, and we have quite a few critiques of those. But
I remember that, yeah.
I was wondering, if anything could be done to convert the POPs to like tennis courts or pickleball courts, or even indoors in a 10-story building, devoting a floor to a community center type thing. So I don't know if that's been done, but I just wanted to at least raise it as a possibility. As you know,
I don't know if Irina, do you have any thoughts on that? I know that the plan was trying to not be so specific. This plan, yeah.
So very quickly, I think it's a great question. Couple things on that, because I think PSMP speaks a lot about this, and I think we try to some extent reconcile those design characteristics of these open spaces, of these private and public spaces, by including the design guidelines as part of the PSMP. But a couple of things. I think, as Natasha said, specifically for the plan lengths to Boulevard, I think the future uses of these new public spaces that are recommended in the plan will be determined as part of the future master planning processes or site plan development processes. I understand your general question and concern. We discussed that a lot during the PSMP update process. I think it matters when the Park and Recreation Commission and other commissions get involved in the design of these spaces and the site plan processes. I think that's the really great place for all of you to participate, because I'll mention just one. I know this is one-off and it probably won't happen anytime soon, but Met Park is a privately owned public space, and it's an amazing contribution to our public space system. If you don't know the details when you're there, you want to know if it's owned by the public or not. It's greatly maintained, at least for now. It's a new park, so we will see how that's going to look in the future. But there is a lot of investment that went into the park. I know that we won't have probably that funding for any future privately owned public spaces. I completely understand that. But I do want to say sometimes these spaces can really function really well. They are great to supplement or complementary to our public space system in general. We need them. The county cannot either build or maintain or find a land for public spaces that are owned by the county always, you know what I mean? So I think what we should be doing, not just for the Langston Boulevard area, but for any site plan developments in the future, we really should work on getting these spaces that are really well designed, they're meaningful for the community, and we really need PRC's help in that. And I know that you all participate in this and you're very helpful with your feedback. So just want to mention that this is not really typical for the plan Langston Boulevard. I think this is something that throughout the county we need to continue working on. And if there is anything we from DPR side can help with, please let us know. That's a kind of a separate conversation, but I think it's a really great point. And we know that. We heard that for years. We've been hearing that from the community, and we worked on it as part of the PSMP, but we know that there is more work needed to be done in the future. So.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think our comments will probably ask that the plan, that at some point, I don't know if it's proper in the plan or later, but that there be some kind of parameters put on a POP to, minimum standards for green space, and not that it just be, quite a bit of impermeable surface that's adjunct to commercial space. Okay, so I'm just going down my list, guys, of the things that I sent out in that memo on the 20th. We talked about the POPs. We talked about defining the green space. Let's see. Public right-of-way being converted to green space and making sure it's environmentally sustainable. Tree canopy cover we discussed. We will be talking in our letter about reminding the county board about its promise to buy new land, but that's really not in the Langston Boulevard plan. We've already talked about the recreation facilities. We think they're inadequate. And stormwater goals, that's something else we have to really be careful of, although I think you've addressed it as well as possible, probably. And we also had a discussion last time about the stormwater management being part and parcel of recreation sometimes. So at the point where those two things can do combined, double duty, I guess, that would be a win for everybody. And we talked about safety at the intersections and increased frequency of buses. Okay, so that's the list that I have, everybody. So if anybody wants to make any changes, let me know, or please speak up now. We're going through this meeting at a breakneck speed. So I don't know if that's because you've all read everything and you're completely well-versed and you've said everything, or some other reason, but I'm rambling, so I'm going to stop, turn it back to Marco.
No, just wanted to say, unless there's any other discussion, thank you, Natasha, for your presentation and discussion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I had it muted. Thank you so much. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, and our next item is the staff report. I don't have any additional updates related to what was sent out to the commission a few days ago. However, I did want to update the commission on the Bill Thomas Park Volunteer Award recognition ceremony and reception, which is currently planned for the Tuesday, November 14th County Board recess meeting. The original, I guess, understanding was that the recognition and the reception would occur during the second half of that recess meeting. However, we received word from the county board office that it'll actually happen during the first half of the recess meeting. So that actually starts at 3 p.m. The recognition for the Bill Thomas Park Volunteer Award would happen sometime between 3 and 4. We actually did receive confirmation from Beth Kaiser that she will be attending that. And I think she'll be inviting some friends and family and others to participate as well. Our comms team has done an excellent job at informing and organizing the past winners as well from 2020 and 2021. So they have all been contacted, and hopefully they'll be participating with us during that recognition ceremony and reception. So again, the plan is for that to occur within the first hour or so of the recess meeting on the 14th of November. Followed by that, we would have the reception, and that would occur in room 311. That's actually the conference room that's right across from the county boardroom. And we'll have some opportunities there for, folks to say any words. There'll be some refreshments there, photo ops, whatever the case may be. So there will be opportunities at that time as well to touch base and to and to celebrate the recognition of the award winners from the past few years, as well as the Beth Kaiser for 2022.
And that'll be at around 4 o'clock, right, Marco?
That'll be around 4 o'clock. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And that's really the bulk of my update, unless there is anything else that you wanted to add, Vice Chair.
Well, I just wanted to point out, as I think you did in writing earlier, that so our regular meeting starts at 7 p.m. on the same evening.
That's
so
correct.
We'll be sitting around there for 2 hours, or maybe we could order dinner in or something. I don't know if there's room in that, if that room's being occupied, but let me know if anybody wants to get together and do something in that interim. And then Alex, did you get an email from Shruti about whether you can make that 3 o'clock meeting?
I did. I can't give you confirmation at this time.
Okay, okay. No rush, but I just want to make sure that you got that and are considering it.
Yeah, that is also the week I have set aside to do any follow-up travel for a project that I'm working on now. So I don't know whether I'm going to be there or not, or whether I can be there at 3, but I hope to know by the end of next week.
Okay, that's good information. Thank you for that. Okay, are there any, Adam has his hand.
Oh, yes, Adam.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask, is there any way that we could potentially push back a little bit and ask them to do it later? Is there a particular reason why they're doing it early rather than later in the session?
Yeah, so there isn't, I don't know of any specific reason. All I do know is that our comms team has been working with the communications folks in the manager's office as well as the board office. And we had this back and forth for quite some time. However, as we all know, the county board office at the end of the day does the final agendas, and they, they've called for this particular item to be considered at the beginning of the recess meeting. So at this point, this is what we're working with.
Okay. All right. So yeah, maybe we can organize a PRC short dinner between sessions, and maybe invite the I'm not sure what they're going to have at the reception, but maybe invite the awardees to join us.
Actually, that's an interesting idea. Can you find out, Marco, if that room is going to be accessible to us in that 2-hour window between 5 and 7?
That's a good question. I will go ahead and I'll ask our comms folks to see if anyone will be using that room, because there may be another public meeting that will occur potentially within that room, during our usual commission or committee times, which are typically after 7 o'clock. But I'll confirm to see if it's being used, and if it is, then unfortunately that won't be an option. But then maybe there may be some other way to have folks congregate afterwards.
Yeah, I'll just point out that if we all come at 3 o'clock and last all the way through our meeting, that'll be a 6-hour stint with each other. We'll be best friends by then. I can't think of a better group I'd be friends with. So again, thank you so much to Melissa and Alex and Nelson for your work on getting the nominee. And I think she was really thrilled. So based on her email reply. All right. Is it now for commission member reports?
Yes.
Just going straight down the list. I wanted to point out about the Gulf Branch stream restoration. Some of you may have been copied on an email that I was copied on, expressing extreme displeasure with the Gulf Branch stream restoration, although it's not called stream restoration anymore, it's something else. I talked this afternoon with Colt Gregory, who has been our representative on that. And I have my own opinions on it, and I would like to let you know that there is a meeting tomorrow at 5:30 at Gulf Branch. It's going to be a walk around meeting at 5:30, and then it's going to be a presentation by staff, I think from 6:30 to 8:30, something like that. So anyway, my concerns were allayed by talking to Colt, but if anybody wants to discuss it in more detail, I'm happy to tell you what he told me. Am I the only one?
I think that would be valuable.
Okay. So the people opposing it are from Alexandria, and they succeeded in getting the Taylor Stream restoration project canceled in Alexandria, or at least significantly reduced. But the issue here is much more to do with exposed sewer lines that have to be fixed. And secondly, with really severe erosion that is contributing significant sedimentation to the stream and to the Potomac River and to the Chesapeake Bay. So it's Colt's view, after looking at it and being on the committee for a long time, that we absolutely have to change the, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes. We absolutely have to deal with the sewer issue. So that's going to happen no matter what we say. But he also feels that they've made, they've changed it. It's no longer called stream restoration. Instead, it's called something like stream revitalization, because there's just no way to get a stream back to its, to a restored state where it actually performs the filtering process that it did before we had all this development. But he says what they're going to do in the process of fixing the sewer lines and making sure those are stable is they're going to raise up the bottom of the stream bed. And when they do that, it will create a much shallower stream bed, and therefore it will flood, if you will, when there's a high volume of water. It will flow out over more ground. instead of continuing to scour and scrape inside a narrow channel. And so the hope is that with the more shallow stream bed and more plantings, that there will be improved sedimentation or less sedimentation. He doesn't think that the water quality is going to be significantly changed. And that was the big issue in Taylor Run down in Alexandria. Was their rationale for proposing to do it was a water quality improvement, but that's not really our rationale up here. And so, oh, and then the other thing that Colt mentioned is that there are 2 tributaries to Gulf Branch that will be improved in a good way. And he mentioned that there's I'm just relaying this. I haven't seen it for myself, but there's evidently a large area behind the Madison Community Center that's right now being mowed, and it really should go to meadow. And he thinks that that will happen with this project, and that will significantly help sedimentation as well. So that's what I have to say on that. Any discussion? Anybody want?
This is Alex. I haven't been following the Gulf Branch project carefully, though I am pretty familiar with many of the other stream restoration projects around the area. And I think my primary comment would be that these sorts of projects, I mean, obviously you need to protect the sewer infrastructure, but that if one's looking for any long-term environmental benefits, that one really needs to invest in green infrastructure upstream where the impervious surfaces are and detain and deal with retention up there. By the time it gets into the stream, it is too late, and you are just patching problems. And that's what this project is. It is a big Band-Aid over a problem that is getting worse and worse. But without dealing with the problem of stormwater at its source, they'll be back at this in another 50 years.
Right, right. I went to a class and
the canopy trees will not be.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
And unfortunately, the canopy trees will not be yet. And so they're in a tough spot. And it's most of the counties and cities in this area are in the same spot.
Right.
I think in DC, what we're starting to see is there's been sufficient pushback from other agencies that have made it clear to the district's government that if they want cooperation, that they need to invest money in detaining stormwater outside of the park areas where it's coming from. And that is really, I think, the only way that the problem can start to be handled over the long term.
Yeah, I agree. I think the new stormwater utility cost structure that's going to take effect, I think, in January of 2024 may have some effect on that. But all of us who go to these development meetings, site plan review committee meetings, need to really push on stormwater retention and make sure that, that's addressed to the ultimate possible. So I agree with you. Okay, anything else on, so Marco, did you have anything you wanted to point out on commission member reports?
None that I can see at this time.
All right, did anybody want to speak up about what their report might have been? Any site plan reviews or anything? Okay. All
So
right.
So that puts us into the other business section. Vice Chair Barker, I don't know if you wanted to quickly discuss the letters to the county board.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll do it quickly. I think we pretty much went over it in the earlier in the meeting, but my plan will be to reconstitute my comments to the county board on the forestry and natural resources plan, and then to take these bullet points on the Langston Boulevard plan and turn them into a letter to the county board. But I've lost track of who's supposed to be. We usually do a 3-person committee on these, right? And I've lost track. I think Shruti is on it, but anybody else on this these committees? Can you identify yourselves? And I
Should that be in
apologize.
the minutes from last meeting?
Let me take a look and see.
I think it might have been established before the last meeting. Sarah, are you on
So,
one of these?
I think we have the Plan Langston Boulevard where it was discussed that Shruti would be composing the letter. And I believe Sarah, you would be serving on the review committee. That's Plan Langston Boulevard in particular.
Wait, Sarah, are you still willing to comment
Yeah.
on that? Okay.
Yep. But Mark, you said Shruti's writing the draft?
That is what I have on the minutes from the last meeting.
Well, I'll write it because she's out of town, so she can comment from where she is. So, well, I'll
Cool.
check with
Happy
her
to
make
review.
sure.
And I think FNRP was you, me, and Shruti, Jill, since we're on Energec.
Okay. And then if anybody else wants to review it before you see the final, so what happens is the small committee of 3 or 5 batted it back and forth, and then we send a draft to the whole commission, and then the commissioners at that point can comment, and then we put it in final and send it to the county. So if you'd like to be on the small drafting committee, please raise your hand. We'd like more people.
This is Alex. I'll be happy to contribute to that.
To both of them or just one?
Just to Langston. I think we're
Okay.
in great shape with the forest and natural resources plan. I don't have any additional comments on that. I think every concern has been dealt with. I think we're in good shape.
At least 3 times.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Langston Boulevard is going to be a little different.
Yeah, it's gonna be, we have some hard hitting things to say, so. Okay, excellent. Marco, can you take the next 2? The Goodwill site and the River House. Oh, sorry.
Before we do that,
Yes.
I think there's another letter that we were supposed to write about the public spaces design process. We got a presentation last month about that.
Last month? Are you sure?
I'm 100% sure we had one last month.
Okay. Okay.
It's
All right.
the
I'm
one with
scrambling.
use permits, the ability for
Yes, the
county
use
board.
permits for public space design processes, presentation, and discussion. That is correct. And there was a letter that was supposed to be written. It was discussed that Shruti would compose it, and yes, Adam would be, I believe, serving on the committee, or no, I'm sorry. It just says here that Shruti would be composing the letter. But I don't think a review committee was identified at that point.
Well, I'm happy to be on the review committee for that.
Okay.
And
How do you feel about writing the letter?
well, I was going to ask. So how long is she out of the country?
I don't know, but I know she's not able to be at the November meeting either. So I think she's super busy. If you have
Wow, okay.
time.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that on. Marco, do you know when that's coming up for review by the county board?
I need to get back to you on the current update on that, but I will get back to you on that, Adam.
Okay, just want to see how much time I have to.
Adam, we can send Shruti an email too. It could well be she has it in hand, and I'm just not aware of it.
Okay.
But thank you so much for bringing that up. That was not,
Yes.
that had fallen off my radar. Okay, thank you. Any more
Anybody else?
letters?
Is everybody else?
Oh
wants to
yeah,
serve?
anybody else want to be on it? Okay, it looks like you two.
All right, you get what you got.
All right, okay. So Goodwill site plan and River House, can you take those two, Marco, and I'll do the community energy plan?
So we have three, actually, we have three new site plans or site plan
Okay.
efforts that will be that will require PRC participation. For the Goodwill site plan, that's off of Arlington Boulevard. We would need a primary and an alternate. For the River House neighborhood site plan, I believe Shruti is our primary for that. We would need to identify an alternate for that particular project. And then the Pentagon Center phase development site plan, there's an LRPC subgroup that's being formed where we would need a Park and Rec Commission primary and alternate. So be happy to take any volunteers at this time for any one of those projects.
This is among the most important things that we do, everybody. Marco, can you kind of explain? It's basically usually 2 meetings, and we go and we have a seat at the table. Other people can come and bring their comments, but as commissioners, we have a right and basically a responsibility to be
Yes.
there, and bringing up things like, tree canopy and stormwater and park space and recreation facilities.
Yes, so for a SPRC process or that coupled with a long-range planning review committee process as well, that would, I guess, would be before the SPRC. There are various topics that are discussed for each project. Sometimes they're built in together. Other times they're separate topics for separate meetings. Anything from land use to urban design, public spaces, as we just talked about, public space review and design, transportation, community benefits, things like that. So there's a whole bunch of items that are touched upon where this commission would provide valuable insight for any one of those topics, but certainly for areas concerning public space development.
So we're looking for volunteers for the Goodwill site that's being developed.
I will volunteer to be the primary in Goodwill.
Is that Alex or Adam?
This is me. This is Alex.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. And somebody else was trying to talk?
Well, yeah, I'm actually happy to be the alternate on that one as well.
For Goodwill,
Right.
okay.
And then what's the Pentagon project? What is that? Pentagon City?
So there's a it's an approved phase development site plan. It's coming back for a long-range planning committee subgroup. I believe there may be an update to that project, so we would need a primary and an alternate from the PRC for that.
Who is on the original SPRC for that?
That project was adopted originally in 2015, so I would imagine no one from this commission.
Wow. Can we get Bill Ross back?
That's what I was going to say. Bring back a emeritus. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Any takers on that one? This is a good chance for me to make a little plug while you're thinking about it, because somebody's going to be fingered. Whether you raise your hand or not, we got to get a volunteer for this. But one of the things that happened at the last Interjag meeting is that another of the commissions that attends there reported that they voted to not approve a certain development project. And it was based on their rubric that they have put together for themselves on what matters to them and whether or not the project met the standards that are important to them. And they have been using the rubric for about 1.5 or 2 years, and they were able to say that this project has the lowest score of any project we've ever reviewed on our rubric. So that leads me to my little plug, which is in the work plan for next year, we're going to be putting together a rubric of our own for Parks and Rec Commission, so that when you go into these meetings, you know, aside from having all these great air balloons about, you know, stormwater and so forth, you'll actually have check boxes that you can give to the developers in advance, or we could give it to the developers in advance to say, these are the things that are important to Parks and Rec Commission. These are the things that we'll be looking for when we write our letters. Okay, so that was my little chance for you to think. What, any volunteers?
This is Gary. I'd be happy to help with the River House one, since I used to
Right.
live in that neighborhood.
Okay.
Great, thank you so much, Gary.
So we've identified Gary as the alternate for River House. We still need a primary and alternate for Pentagon Center.
All right, well, if nobody else will volunteer, I will pick up Pentagon Center. Pentagon Center, is that what it is?
Yeah,
Okay, does that mean like Costco?
that site, yes. Or that
All right,
site
well,
area,
I
I guess.
shop at Costco, so I guess I can do that.
I can,
Sarah?
I,
that you?
I was gonna say, I'm happy to be alternate, and we can talk more when the meetings are actually scheduled, Jill, as far as who attends,
Okay.
if needed, but I did cut somebody off, I think.
You beat me to it. This is Gary. I was going to offer to be the alternate on that one, but you got it.
Well, you know, I think, Gary, I'll just say, maybe you can be a shadow alternate or something like that. I think having more than a couple set of eyes is always good, and it's, I think, a good learning experience for folks new to the commission
Sure.
to sit with us as we go through the process. So,
Okay. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. So I'll join your twosome and make it a
Great.
threesome.
Thank you,
And
Gary.
you know what I can do, Jill, Gary, and Sarah? I can just flag to our CPHD representative for this that we'll have a primary, but then we'll also have 2 alternates in case, you know, we need, like you said, the third set of eyes. So I think that'll be good.
Great.
Thanks, Marco.
Thank you so much.
And
All
I
right.
think that's it for that item.
Okay, so the last thing before the very last thing, the community energy plan, and this also grew out of the Enerjag meeting. David Howell, who you may remember used to be on our commission, sits on Enerjag, and he came up with the strategic idea of trying to address the county's lack really of a climate master plan or a climate action plan. It's called different things in different communities. What we have in Arlington right now is a community energy plan, but it really doesn't address all the other aspects of the environmental urgency that we all face and feel. So he wrote a 2-page paper that I sent out, that Marco sent out in the meeting. And he tasked everybody, the 3 commissions, with coming back to the next Enerjag meeting with basically just, you know, giving a list of priorities as to what would the PRC most value in a climate action plan. So can you guys brainstorm a little bit out loud and let me know what you think? What are the most important things that we should be addressing in a climate action plan? And let me just back up a little bit and say, this is aspirational. It is by no means anything that has been adopted or has even been proposed yet. But the feeling is that we need to move in this direction, and that if we let the county will be reconsidering the climate energy plan, or sorry, the community energy plan late in 2024. And it will probably start setting up a process to do that early in 2024. So we wanted to kind of get to them, if you will. I don't know what the right words are, but at least plant an idea or a seed of an idea that they should look more broadly at the issue. In redoing the community energy plan, they should look more broadly at the whole climate. So does anybody have any thoughts about that part? And then we can go into the other part if we want. Do you endorse that idea? I do.
Yep. Agreed.
A second or third.
Agreed.
So no real objections, it sounds like.
I'm not gonna object to it so much. I mean, but I do wonder whether the staff time and the volunteer time invested in creating another climate action plan wouldn't be better spent on making a better and investing more resources in the community energy plan and in many of the other initiatives that the county already has and wants to enact. I completely agree that climate change is a huge issue, and is maybe the great issue of our time. But I do wonder about whether, with the limited staff time that gets spread around here, whether we wouldn't be better investing in some of the initiatives that we already have that will make if done properly and well resourced, a significant difference for the county.
Yeah.
So Alex,
Go ahead, Adam.
Is your concern that changing it to a climate action plan will add other elements that then is going to draw our attention away from focusing on the energy aspect of what we can control?
I'm sorry, are we talking about changing the community energy plan to a climate action plan, or creating a separate climate action plan in addition to a redone community energy plan?
Well, I don't think it's entirely clear at the moment. I think the idea is that the county the staff and the board seems to view the community energy plan as a climate action plan when it really isn't. And so there's been quite a bit of frustration about about that. And so the concept is to try to open the community energy plan and then integrate it with, as you say, with all of the other, like the stormwater plan and the biophilic elements and so forth, and try to get a more holistic working together of the plans that we have plus the energy plan. Because now the energy part seems to be fragmented and the county seems to declare success on climate when it achieves the energy aspects, when that's really only part of it. Because we need to include transportation, we need to include stormwater, we need to include tree canopy, and we have all these other things that are out there, but they need to be worked together. So, and last year, I think it was the beginning of the year before last, the county hired a climate czar or something like that. I forgot the exact title. And so I think we were hoping for a little bit more leadership in that regard with that position. And the idea would be bring the energy plan in to more of a concert with the other climate type initiatives that we have, so that they can all be addressed in a cohesive way.
So the idea, go ahead, Alex. No, please, go ahead.
I just wanted to, for my own edification then here, so the idea is that, so we have all these initiatives and county staff are working very hard on them in concert with all these other organizations. But the concern is that the board misunderstands these plans, or are taking credit for actions that perhaps they shouldn't be yet. And so we should come up with a climate action plan so that it is harder for them to do that. So that, you know, we can't just say, well, you've met some of the goals of the community energy plan, but look, there are all of these other matters that have to be attended to as well. Tree canopy and stormwater and all the rest of it, which we already have plans for, and have spent hundreds of thousands of hours working on these plans, both staff and commissions and volunteers.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's so much that the county board is taking, I mean, it's not so much that they're taking credit, but it's to the extent that the staff is siloed. And I think it's starting to soften up. We're seeing that a lot in DPR. Like there's lots and lots of native plants going in around the parks and less mowing, and there's electric use of, where gas powered tools were and things like of that nature. But there's still a lot of siloing going on in the different departments. So I think that's really one of the bigger issues. I wish David Howell were here because he's been at this much longer than I have, and it's his proposal. Adam, did you want to say something?
I would agree that there is a lot of siloing, but I'm not sure, I'm not confident that a plan is actually going to resolve that. I think a lot of that is either the management and the actions by field staff, and that's largely because that's the way they've been doing things, or that's easy, or there are conflicts for their time. And also, as we're seeing with some of these plans like Langston Boulevard that are coming to us, there are actual meaningful conflicts with limited space and limited resources, and the county has to make choices. And they're not always the choices that people who are primarily concerned about climate change might make. And so there are going to be conflicts.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we could look at this as a way to have a kind of a climate action priorities, where we basically are putting some weight behind all these plans that we have to say this is the reason why we're doing all these things, because of the impact that we want to have on climate change and reacting to it. And by setting priorities, then when those things come in conflict, we have something to look at to say, okay, our priority is this, therefore the choice that we need to make is this. So not so much of a plan, but more of a values, climate action values or priorities that we're setting to help us make decisions about those when those conflicts come up.
Yeah, that's something that's. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Alex. Well, that's something that's been driving me crazy from the beginning. Is there's no real way. I wish there was a way. And the Forestry and Natural Resources Plan has got a plank on this, but to put value on the natural resources, for example, is one example, in comparison with, doing affordable housing, and can you quantify those and weigh them one against the other? and come up with a quantitative analysis. And the answer really is no, you can't. But it helps if you have a list of priorities somewhere and goals that you're trying to meet.
And
Right.
sometimes it's within natural resources. The discussion we just had about stream restoration goes this way. I mean, it is what do you value more in terms of natural resources? Are you trying to achieve stream quality improvements? Are you willing to give up nearby ecological communities to do that? All of these areas require trade-offs, and they're not easy. And it gets down to a statement of political desire. What does the county board want to prioritize? Right now, it seems like it's housing.
Mm-hmm. And without these kind of overarching things, then it's easy to be wishy-washy, or to not force yourself to make a decision, or push it off, or say things like, oh yeah, we'll include it when we start doing site plans. That your statements like, we won't allow development projects to this extent unless there's also a plan for park and recreation space for these new people that are coming in. And that will force those plans to be part of any development plans.
Well, I think this is a really good discussion, and I don't want to belabor it, but I think it's enough for me to take it back to the Interject next month and explain to them, what our concerns are, and then I'll report back again. So we don't have to go through. I think I know what our list is anyway. Native plants, tree canopy, stormwater, and park space. Right? I think I got them. Does anybody want to add anything else? I don't want to cut anybody off. Okay. All right. So with that, I think we're at the end. Go ahead, somebody.
I just thank you for bringing this to our attention. This is really good.
Yeah, this is what we call generative thinking. I love this part of the meeting. Okay. Next meeting. I think we've already discussed all this, right?
Yeah.
The next meeting is at 7 o'clock, but at 3 o'clock we're having the presentation, and 4 o'clock we're having the party. And you're going to find out if the room's available at 5 o'clock for us to have dinner there. Okay.
And then for our PRC meeting later on that evening, we're back in our normal meeting space in Cherry, which is room 216 on the second floor.
Oh, so we'll have to move.
Yes.
So if we have dinner in 311, we have to, okay. Well, anyway, if you can find us a room there, should we take a vote right now? If we could find a room in the building, who would want to stay and eat carry-in dinner? Raise your hand. No, but what we got 1, 2. I would do it. 4. Melissa's gonna bring company. Oh, I see. No, okay, I see. So we have 3 plus myself, it looks like. Okay, so maybe we'll just go out. Okay. Great. Well, thanks for putting up with me. Thank you, Marco, for helping the meeting run smoothly. Is there anything else? Oh, next month we're going to be talking about the people who sign the summer camp, right?
Yes, DPR summer camps, and follow up on that process from this past summer and any next steps for future years. That's currently what we have planned for our agenda for next month. It should be pretty light, so hopefully it'll be a good discussion.
Good. All right, so look for the letters, and thank you to everybody who volunteered. Thanks for the great discussions. And with that, I think the meeting is adjourned, right?
Yeah.
Oh, do we have to have a motion? Do we have to have a motion? Okay, we know. Okay.
No official motion.
All right. I can say it. Just turn off your computer. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening and a nice month.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Marco.
Thank you.